Okay, so I'm going to record me working the key to our review worksheet, and I'm going to go kind of fast just because this is a video, and so therefore you can pause it at any time or rewind, so to speak, go back and view a part again. So first off, distance formula, midpoint formula. That's what we're doing in numbers 1 and 2. Distance formula looks like this. You should not need to memorize this really because you already know it. The only new thing is the z's. However, it will be on the board tomorrow, so don't worry about that. Midpoint formula, I add the x's, divide by 2, add the y's, divide by 2, add the z's, divide by 2. This is the thing I keep telling you is the average, just like if you add 2 test scores and divide by 2. Okay, so that's what we're using in numbers 1, or in 1A and 1B. So first off, we have, excuse me, distance between these two. I'm going to do 3 minus 0, which gives me 3 squared. Negative 4 minus 1, which gives me negative 5, but it might as well be a 5 because I'm going to square it. And negative 5 minus 2, which gives me negative 7, same thing as 7 when you square it. So I have square root of 9 plus 25 plus 49. So this is going to be, let's see, square root of 83. Okay, you can leave it like that because I don't think that reduces, or you can change it to a decimal in your calculator. The midpoint, I add 0 plus 3 and divide by 2. That's 3 halves, which is the same as 1.5. Add 1 plus negative 4 and divide by 2. That's negative 3 halves. And 2 plus negative 5 is negative 3 halves also when I divide by 2. Excuse me. Okay, so next we've got distance formula again over here. 3 minus a negative 2 is 5. Square it. 0 minus 4 is negative 4. I'm going to square it so I don't really care if it's negative or positive 4. 3 minus a negative 6 is 9 squared. So I have 25 plus 16 plus 81. Okay, 25 plus 16 is 41, and add 81 and we get 122. That probably reduces, so I would probably try to either reduce it or change it to a decimal. So the equivalent of square root of 122 is going to be our length. Pay attention to whether you're told to give it as a decimal or not. I don't think that it's specified on your test, but just double check, always look. Midpoint, we're going to add negative 2 plus 3. Negative 2 plus 3 is 1, divided by 2. 4 plus 0, divided by 2. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 3, and divide by 2. There's my midpoint. Okay, keep in mind this is the same thing as 0.5 to negative 1.5. All right, on number 2, we are graphing our prisms. That means the box. Okay, so we are going to start here at 0, 0, 0. I'm going to go 3 in the positive x direction, so that's this way. Then I'm going to go negative 5 in the y direction. That's back this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, now I have 2 sides of my little parallelogram I'm going to draw here. So here's my parallelogram. Now finally, I'm going to go down 4 from there, straight down. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 from every corner of that parallelogram. I'm going down 4. And then I'm putting the bottom on my box. Remember, a box is the same thing as a rectangular prism. So now I go positive 3, negative 5, down 4, here's the point. Notice it says be sure to indicate where the point is. That big dot is the point. All right, next one. Negative 6 on x is back this way. Negative 8 on y is over this way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Going right to the edge. And again, I'm going down because it says -3, so I'm going down 3 from each corner of my parallelogram, and then putting a bottom on my box. So I'm going to go -6, -8, -3, and here's my point. Now number 3, graphing the plane. This is where we find the x-intercept, y-intercept, and z-intercept, and then put points on the axes to correspond with those. So in other words, when I'm trying to find the x-intercept, I'm taking this equation and I'm plugging in a 0 for y and a 0 for z. That makes this go away and this go away. So I get this. When I solve it, I get x is -3. So I'm going to put a point, 1, 2, 3, on the negative end of the x-axis. Now I'm going to go back and do the same thing, but this time I'm plugging in zeros for x and z because I'm trying to find the y-intercept. So plug in a 0 for x, that goes away. Leave y, plug in a 0 for z, this goes away. And here's what I have. That's not solved. I have to multiply both sides by -1 or divide both sides by -1, but I'm going to make that negative go away in front of the y. So y is 6. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the positive y-axis and make a dot. And finally, when I plug in 0 for x and y, these both go away and I have 3z equals -6. This is finding the z-intercept, which means where my graph crosses the z-axis. Z is -2, so it's right here. So now I'm going to draw a triangle between those 3 points, and I like to shade it because it's representing a plane, so it's a flat surface. And there it is. Next one, same idea. X-intercept, a 0 goes in for y and a 0 goes in for z. So I have -3x minus 10 equals 5. Add 10 to both sides, and -3x is 15, so x is -5. Let's go ahead and do the others now. When I plug in a 0 for x and a 0 for z, I get the same thing except with y. 3y minus 10 equals 5. 3y is 15. This time it's positive. Y is 5. And when I plug in the zeros for x and y, I get 5z minus 10 equals 5. 5z equals 15. Z is 3. The one we looked at had x sub o for the x value of the center, y sub o for the y value of the center, and z sub o for the z value of the center. Another thing you can sometimes have is h, k, just like a circle, and then l, h, k, l. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get it into. I'm trying to get it to be like that. This is what it looks like now. So I need all my x's to get together, all my y's to be together, all my z's to be together. So that's my first step. I'm going to take, this is me rewriting the equation as it is. I'm going to collect the x's together, collect the y's together, collect the z's together. And if I have any plain numbers, I'm moving them over to the right. Now you notice I sort of spaced it out. That's because what I usually like to do is go ahead and write a space for where I'm going to complete my square, or a blank. Okay, I'm trying to make x plus something squared or x minus something squared, so that it looks like this. This is completing the square. So it's exactly the same thing we did with the circle. I just get to do it an extra time for z. So I'm going to look at this number, take half of it. Half of 4 is 2. That number goes here, the 2 that was half of 4. Now the thing that I get when I square 2 goes here. And I have to add it on the other side. Same process here. I'm going to take half of negative 10. That's negative 5. When I square negative 5, I get 25. So I add 25 to the other side also. Half of positive 6 is 3, positive 3. When you square positive 3, you get 9. So I'm going to add 9 over here. When I add all these things together, 4 plus 9 plus 20. Is at 6, negative 1, 0. And my radius is the square root of 36, so it's 6. So here is the standard form, my equation in standard form. Here's my center, and here's my radius. All right, next. Identify the center and radius of the sphere. These are pretty easy. The center here is at negative 5. Make sure you change the sign. That's really the only thing that could go wrong there. The radius is the square root of 81, so that's 9. Here, the center is at 2, 0, because y squared is the same as y minus 0 squared, and negative 4. The radius is the square root of 5, so I'm just going to leave it that way. Tell whether the equation represents a sphere or a plane. A plane because nothing's squared. This is the stuff that we just graphed on the other side. Okay, at the bottom of the other side. Nothing squared, that's a plane. X squared, y squared, z squared, that's a sphere. If you just had x squared and y squared and you didn't see any z's in the problem, that would be a circle, because that's what we did in our last unit. All right, on this one, I'm just doing midpoint formula. Endpoint is this. Here's the other endpoint. Find the midpoint. I add the x's and divide by 2. If you need to see the midpoint formula, I wrote it back at the beginning for 1a and b. So 2 plus negative 2 is 0. Divide that by 2, it's still 0. 7 plus 11 is 18. Divide by 2, you get 9. 0 plus negative 6 is negative 6. Divide that by 2, you get negative 3. Finally, on this one, find the equation of a sphere with the endpoint of its radius at 1.15, negative 3, and the center at 1, negative 2, 6. This is my center, so I can already fill this part in. X minus 1 squared, y plus 2 squared, z minus 6 squared. That's my center, so that's the x sub 0, y sub 0, z sub 0, or x sub o, y sub o, z sub o, or we could call it h, k, and l. Okay, just like we were talking about earlier. The only thing I don't know, and this is a 6, not a b, by the way, I don't know the radius. I know that the radius ends at this point, so this means that's a point on the sphere, or on the circle if it were a circle. Okay, so if I want to know the radius is the same thing as the distance from the center to the edge. So it's the distance from this point to this point. So I'm going to use the distance formula to find my radius. So r is, and I'm using distance formula here, 1 minus 1 is 0 squared, plus negative 2 minus 5 is negative 7, and I'm going to square it, so I really don't care if it's a negative 7 or a positive 7. 6 minus a negative 3 is a positive 9 squared. This gives me 49 plus 81. If I add 49 and 81, I believe I get square root of 130. So my radius is the square root of 130. There is no reason to go ahead and simplify this because I really don't need the radius. I need the radius squared. That's what goes in this equation. So if this is the radius squared is just 130. And that's it.